Hello, everyone. This is Victor Jimenez. I'm your executive director for the OUTshine LGBTQ+ Film Festival, and welcome to this virtual Q&A for our OUTshine at Home film, Kapana. We have a great Q&A here. We have the director, the writer, and the two lead actors here, so this should be a good time. So without further ado, let me start bringing in everyone into the broadcast studio. First, we have the director, Philippe Talavera. Welcome, Philippe.
Hi, nice.
Next, we have writer and one of the actors in the film, Mikiros. Mikiros, please tell your last name. I don't. Hello, everyone. This is Victor Jimenez. I'm your executive director for the OUTshine LGBTQ+ Film Festival, and welcome to this virtual Q&A for our OUTshine at Home film, Kapana. We have a great Q&A here. We have the director, the writer, and the two lead actors here, so this should be a good time. So without further ado, let me start bringing in everyone into the broadcast studio. First, we have the director, Philippe Talavera. Welcome, Philippe.
Hi, nice.
Next, we have writer and one of the actors in the film, Mikiros. Mikitos, please tell your last name. I don't.
Garues.
Garues. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And my apologies. Next, we have one of the two leads, Adriano Visaggi. Welcome.
Saji, thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
And then the other lead actor, last but not least, Simon Hanga. Welcome, Simon. He's there. All right. So, great film. And then one thing our audience may not be aware of, but and then this is actually kind of my leading question, is this is Namibia's first LGBT film, feature film. And really to Philippe and Mikitos, what was it like to actually, create the film? You just go through that process. This is the first one, first LGBT film in the country. There's no experience with it, where there were just issues finding, the filmmakers involved with it, plus also just as well as the talent involved in the film.
Maybe I can start and then Mikiros can proceed just by giving a little bit of background. In Namibia, same-sex relationships are still criminalized. It's still a crime to be in a gay relationship. Part of the idea of creating Kapana was to try to see how could we discuss decriminalization, and should actually same-sex relationship still be criminalized? We are in the 21st century, and is it fair? Is it right? Is it normal? And people who are for those criminalizing same-sex relationship often use arguments such as the Bible and such as religious images. So we just wanted to create a nice love story where the two protagonists happen to be two men, and we wanted the story to be so non-obtrusive that it could have been two women, it could have been a man and a woman, it didn't matter. We just wanted to tell a love story, and that at the end of the day, people realize actually it's two men in love, and why should it not be legal? What difference? This story could have been between a man and a woman, could have been between two women. So why stigmatizing this specific relationship? And we wanted the relationship between the two characters, George and Simeon, to be actually a nice relationship with its ups and downs, but to be a nice relationship that people could relate to sort of break down stereotypes.
And then, Mikitos, how did you get involved?
Yes, Felipe approached me. And first of all, we have to give a shout out to our other writer, because I didn't write alone. It was myself and another amazing, talented female writer called Senga Brokarov. So it was her and I that was approached by Felipe and Oyo to take on this project. And everything that Felipe just said is really hitting it on the nail. And as a woman, I'm an ally of the LGBT community, but I'm a straight cis woman. So it was a very interesting experience for me. And what Felipe said, again, it hit it on the nail, because the main thing was, forget that they're two gay men. And it was just about creating a love story. Just two people who happened to be two men that fell in love. And that was something Senga and I really, really focused on. Let's just make a story just about two people falling in love, start from there, and really wanted to just keep that essence, really. So.
No, thank you.
That's where I was coming from, yeah.
Can you, I guess for Adriano and Simon, like what was the casting process like for you? Did you have trepidations taking the role? Can you tell my audience here like how you got involved with the film? We'll start with Adriano first.
So I've worked with Philippe on a similar project before, not necessarily similar, but on another film called Salute. And he then approached me to play this role. So after reading the script, I was really taken aback, because I felt you know what, this is a first for Namibia. This is a first for our country. What would the impact of this be like? So I was quite hesitant, to be honest with you. As much as I'm an ally and I form part of the LGBTQI plus family, it was hard because you're looking at rejection at first, but after being sensitized about the script and the importance of the script, I took the chance to really jump on it because I think the narrative is important. It's important to be telling a story as such, especially in a country such as Namibia that consists of 2.5 million people, but you still have same-sex or sodomy that is, criminalized, and the criminalization against the LGBTQI family, especially in Africa. I think, all around the world, we are able to see representation on the screen, but to see this from a country like Namibia, where we so loudly and proudly have toxic patriarchy, it's one of those narratives that I think is important to tell now, and hence I jumped onto this opportunity.
And then Simon, what about you? I think this is like one of your first feature films, if I remember correctly. Great.
Simon, your mic is on.
Oh, Simon, you're muted. You're muted.
You have to unmute your mic.
Uh-oh. Might be having an issue.
Yeah, maybe while we wait for Simon. Part of about Simon's story. The casting actually was quite difficult.
Wait. I think Simon's mic. Simon, your mic's unmuted now.
Hello?
Yeah, perfect. There we go.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Uh-oh. Now we lost you. Hold on one second. We lost Simon. So actually, Philippe, you were about to say, hopefully he'll call back in and then we'll get him back into the studio.
Yeah, the casting was not as easy as it sounded. And particularly, again, to give a little bit of background maybe for people who are not familiar with Namibia, it's the second least populated country in the world, yet we have about 12 cultural groups. And those cultural groups can be very different from the one to the next. And when we did the research part, and Mickey Ross was also a bit involved in the research part, constantly it came back that one specific cultural group was very much in the closet. And people from that cultural group would not openly say that they are gay. So we really wanted an actor from that cultural group to play the part of Simon. Of Simeon. And it was quite tricky to find the right actor. It was a long process until we finally met Simon, and Simon agreed to play Simeon, which was very brave of him, but that came after a long casting process.
So yeah, Simon, let me, there you go. So, Philippe was just basically telling us, how difficult it was to find your role. So I guess, can you share with us, your experience going through the casting process and your decision to take on the role of Simeon?
It was quite challenging for me to take this role because of how the LGBTQ community is perceived in my society and my country as well. So it's quite a bit of convincing, but then until I got to read the script and understand how this actually is a challenge to different people in my society on a day-to-day basis, so I decided to take on this challenge.
Oh, perfect, thank you. And then Philippe, to you actually brought up a good point, and I meant to say it earlier. My festival's in South Florida, United States. We are not known for our great geography knowledge. I know most of the audience probably knows that Namibia is in Africa. But I figured out that it was a part of the Commonwealth of the United Kingdom because of English and the steering wheel on the right hand side of the car. I was very surprised and you mentioned it with the diversity of the cultural groups in Namibia. As a matter of fact, I felt it was like, it reminded me a lot of Jamaica, which is closer to my backyard here, where I really actually got a lot of like a Jamaica feel, and just, in watching the film. So thank you for sharing that. Just out of curiosity, where in Africa is Namibia? Like, is it like by South Africa? Is it sub-Saharan in that area? Like, out of curiosity.
It's in sub-Saharan Africa. It's we border by South Africa, so we are actually quite down. South Africa is our neighbor, but we are very much down on the Atlantic side.
Okay.
And we are neighbors with Botswana and Angola in the north. It's a very big country. It's twice as big as the UK, but it's only 2.5 million people. So it's one of the least densely populated country in the world. It's very, very arid, very dry. The climate is not as easy as in some other part of Africa. We've got very limited rainfall. So I think that's part of the reason why it's such a small population, the country. From a historic point of view, it was first a German colony, then it was handed over to the British, so it became part of the Commonwealth, then it was handed over to South Africa, so it became part of South Africa, and went through the whole apartheid regime of South Africa. It's an independent country since 1990. So we are about to celebrate 31 years of independence. Therefore, it's a fairly young country. It's only 31 years old as a country, which sometimes we forget as well. We've come a long way already in 31 years, but obviously there's still a lot to be done, especially in terms of LGBTQI+ rights and a few other items that are still not quite sorted out. We've inherited a lot of legislation from the Victorian time. For example, the legislation in sodomy is back from when we were part of the Commonwealth. We inherited legislation from South Africa. So we still have a long way to be completely fully independent, but to also embrace some more modern ideas, such as LGBTQI+ rights. The weird thing is that we are surrounded by countries that have decriminalized same-sex relationship. In South Africa, same-sex marriages are allowed. In both Botswana and Angola, same-sex relationships are not criminalized anymore, but we are still, in our little bubble, still criminalizing same-sex relationships.
No, thank you for that. I figured you were near South Africa just because you use the term Lofi, and we had a film from South Africa, which that was the title of the film. So that's the only reason why I was familiar with the film. Going back specifically to Kapana, one of my favorite scenes, and actually the way how it was handled in terms of acting wise and the way it was written and just people's reactions, is when Simon's character discovers the medicines that George was taking and what it meant. And can we actually just go into more detail about, like, not only just that specific scene at the family, at the family meal, but also just like later on, at the aftermath, when Simeon is still trying to process this and trying to learn from it from when his sister came in, like, to me it felt like a very genuine reaction. Like, like you have a person who is ignorant of what current information is. I think the reaction is completely natural, and all that. Can you make it like go over like what it was like to write that scene, and then for Philippe and Simon and Adriano, how was it like to actually film it and act in the scene?
Actually, that scene was the one I think we went the most back and forth about. I think that's the scene we spent the most time on, and the one we really wanted to get right, because like you said, it was a very relatable scene because Simon, the whole situation, him being in this relationship, it was a situation that he already had a lot of trepidation, like feelings about. He was already nervous and really uncomfortable in this space to begin with. So this was just another reason why it's like, I knew this wouldn't work out. I knew this was too good to be true. I knew this wasn't gonna be as this wasn't going to be a good thing. So that was a very, very tricky scene that we had to get right. And again, it was a very relatable moment. I feel like it was very honest. And like Philippe touched on, because he comes from a tribe that's very, very closed off about topics like this. So yeah, it was an interesting scene to write. Senga and I went back and forth about it, and I just felt we just have to keep it as authentic and as honest as possible, if that makes sense.
No, and I definitely got that impression. And then Philippe, Simon, and Adriana, how was it to actually, film and act in that scene?
Philippe, you want to go first?
Okay. I think, for me, the idea was when we start a relationship, and again, it doesn't matter if it is a same-sex relationship or not, we all come with our baggage.
Yeah.
And the question becomes, when do you say what to the person you meet? And when being silent for too long become too long? And then when does it explode in your face and backfire at you? So as Mikhail said, that was probably the most important scene in the movie, because it's everything is starting to get well, and then this happened, and this could break everything that George has tried to build with Simeon in the first 25 minutes of the movie. So when he finally gets somewhere, then this thing happens. And then you realize, gosh, I made a mistake. I should have talked about it earlier, but I can't go back in time. We had a lot of rehearsals. I mean, Simon and Adriano can talk about it, but we had about 5 weeks of rehearsals. And we talk about character development, and we talk about the scenes, and we talk about the logic of the situation. We also, and I was quite honest with both Mikiros and Senga, the way I work with script is that scripts are dynamic. So for me, the word on the script, we could still play around with them to make the scene feel right. So sometimes we also change some of the lines because we felt the line felt a bit artificial, but during the rehearsal process, as we got comfortable with the scene, we sometimes adapted a little bit the scene to the two actors so that it would feel very honest. And at the end of the day, that's what we were trying to do, is to have a movie that was as honest as possible, and to have two characters that we would relate to, because there's a lot of stigmatization going against same-sex relationship, but there's also a lot of stigmatization going against HIV in Namibia. So when you happen to have both, to be gay and HIV positive, you really struggle with a double discrimination. And we wanted to make this as honest as possible and show what people like George have to go through and why it is difficult for them to simply be honest.
And then Simon and Adriana, you want to let us know what it was like to actually act? It was a very intense scene when it happened. And now we know, there was 5 weeks of kind of going over it. How was that process?
So I think for me personally, the process was quite intense and challenged me as an actor with the characterization that we did and the focus on what is it like to tell this authentically as possible, because here I am telling the narrative of a queer man that is living in a country where everybody sort of turns a blind eye to issues related to HIV, but also the fact that everybody thinks that HIV is sort of this death sentence. And I need to bring this to life because now I need to gain weight because we want to make this character look as healthy as possible. The characterization of George, who was so brave, yet all he yearned for was love. So it required a lot of method acting from myself as an actor to really dive in the emotion of what it's like to be a character that's also HIV positive, because one would not understand. Are they going through a lot of angst? Is there this fear because you live in a society that sort of castrates you if you're HIV positive? So the understanding of this narrative was so important. But kudos again, that is to our writers as well as to our director, because Philippe was so intense in terms of delivering what emotion the characters had to bring. And for me, that was challenging, yet intriguing, but also quite tough. But I love the challenge.
I guess
Right, Colin?
yeah. So for me personally, as an actor, it was the first time I had a lead role, and that's my first feature film. So in this specific scene, it was very challenging because at times I couldn't get the emotion across because of uh, this being a different story, especially because I am a straight man in real life, so I had to play somebody that was closeted and I had to portray this story. But Philippe made it such an easy job because he was there to guide and direct me most of the time. Adriano was very professional and his experience wonderful. Nikki Ross was always giving me pointers as she's an experienced actress as well. So I'm just gonna say like everything came together well on set, so I can't really say anything more than that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Out of, I guess, for has this film actually been shown in Namibia? Like, has it been released there? Have you had screenings there? What's the reception been for the film, and also for the actors? You know, like, you know, for the actors looking to that second part, like, did you get pushback from like your friends, other actors, about like, I can't believe you took this role? But the first part of the question is, you know, how has this film been received in the country so far?
I think personally,
we've got a couple of screenings in Namibia. We've been limited by COVID and regulations. So we often couldn't have screening with more than 50 people. So obviously it makes it quite hard work to get enough people to see the movie because we can only go 50 by 50. But it has got one advantage, is that with small audiences, we can have a better interaction after the screening. So we had quite a few screenings where we actually had a Q&A at the end of the screening, and that was very often very well received. We had some audiences that were maybe a little bit more difficult than others, but overall, I think we never had any clash with people. We hardly ever had anybody walking out of the movie. We mostly show it in the capital city. It's a little bit of a bias because the capital city is maybe a little bit more open-minded than the rest of the country, but because of COVID regulation, not really been able to show it outside of Windhoek. Hopefully that will come. But audiences in Windhoek are maybe a little bit more educated and a little bit more open-minded. So that was a bit of an easier first audience to get. But the first reaction from this audience in Windhoek has been positive so far, with people acknowledging that it's a narrative that is important to tell.
Yeah. In my experience, I'd say that too. Actually, some of the reception I've gotten has been some of the most rewarding, like, things about being part of this project. It's been really rewarding, like having a lot of LGBT members of that community coming up to us, well, me personally, and saying like, dude, that's literally my story, or this is what I've gone through. I wasn't expecting that. It's a beautiful surprise. And actually a few people too that were more on the opposite side of the spectrum, where they didn't understand the LGBT life and were a bit more opposed to it. I actually have had one person come up to me and said, like, okay, I see things a little different now. Maybe my entire view hasn't been changed, but it did open up, you know, recesses of my mind that I didn't really touch before. And even though I'm not maybe fully convinced, I am open to at least start to have discussions about it, which is ultimately, I think, the point of a movie like this, is just to be able to start dialogue and to have it be out in the open. And even if you don't agree, let's just be able to at least discuss it, you know? So it's been really rewarding in that sense, some of the reception that I've seen so far.
It's great to hear. And then for Adriano and Simon, how's been the reception? How the reception you've been getting for your performance, and then also just like what have your acting colleagues have said about it?
Personally, for having performed or acting in my second film, the realization of being able to cry on cue and really dive into this emotion has been one of those that has challenged me as an actor. And here I am. Philippe requires me to shed a tear, and here I'm crying on cue, which was one of the scenes that was quite pivotal personally for me. However, the narrative has stirred conversation, and I think that is what's important of this. Actors approaching me, asking me, a lot of questions based on my personal sexuality, but also the fact that this narrative has stirred the conversation where the public want to see a sequel. Everybody keeps asking, when is Kapana 2 coming out? Because they now understand that it's just not a queer love story, but it's a love story. And I think the discussion with the times that we're finding ourselves in should drift away from one's sexuality and really focus on what the narrative is here. Conversations around HIV/AIDS, conversations around PrEP, because a lot of people tend to turn a blind eye to when it comes to situations of PrEP or intercultural relationships. And like Philippe said earlier on, a lot of us come with baggages as individuals, but what secrets are we able to share with our partners or with those people that we then accept? So it's similar to a heterosexual relationship, and the queer narrative now more than ever, everybody loves it because it stirs conversation. And I think it's imperative that we find ourselves in positions where the art we represent definitely tells the reality of the times we're finding ourselves in.
Okay, from my side, all I can say is that basically I understood this project more when I was done shooting than when we were busy shooting it. Because at the end of the film, I actually got to see like a lot of people came to me and they said this was also their story. And also the thing that I could say, like, I had friends in my immediate circle that I didn't know were also going through the same thing. So when I finished the project, some guys actually came out and then we had a conversation because they thought I was also coming out, but I actually had to explain that I was straight. But then it was so eye-opening at this time and get to understand the bravery behind coming out, because people just think there are a lot of gay people coming out of everywhere, whatever, everybody's becoming gay, but it's not the case. Some people are just not brave enough to come out. And so it takes so much bravery, and actually got more respect for people that came out of the closet and actually faced the truth and were not to love who they wanted to love.
No, thank you. For Adriano, you actually mentioned something that you put on weight to do the role of George because you wanted, to go against, I guess, the stereotype of like someone losing weight. I want you to know that I actually did catch my attention. I'm like, it's actually refreshing to see an LGBT character in a movie that, looks like an average person. It's not someone who has, has a six-pack abs and the whole thing. So I'm glad I'm not sure if it was your choice or like a creative choice to actually do that, but I want to know it was appreciative because it's, you were a realistic person playing this role. And I want you to know that I was very appreciative of that creative decision on your part.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I need to thank the director for that because he really encouraged that and encouraged the motivation around continuity, but also in terms of characterization. So he's really, really finicky about bringing the character to life as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now I got it's kind of like it's a random question based on the subject matter of the film, but it was a curiosity. The film's called Kapana. It's a certain, it's an eating culture. You go to the Kapana to grab your full, and everyone is there. Everyone's grabbing with their hands. Has the whole COVID just basically wrecked that part of Namibia? Like, I mean, is that kind of gone now for the time being?
I haven't been there in a minute,
Yeah.
for sure. But
I wouldn't say that because I've had some Kapana in the past few weeks. And
The film was shot last year, and I had Kapana once.
There was a time at the beginning of COVID when we had the lockdown where the Kapana and the markets were closed.
Yeah.
But since they have reopened with some regulations, obviously, but Kapana is a very typical Namibian way of drying and preparing the meat, and it's a very social place where people of sort of all kinds of life come and have their lunch or their dinner. So it has survived COVID. I don't think there's enough smoke to kill the virus. I don't know, but no, it has survived COVID. With some restriction, I guess, like in every other places. But it's a very interesting market. It's a market where you meet a lot of different people from all kinds of life. Shooting there, we shoot there for 2 days. That was an interesting experience. I've got so much more respect for the Kapana sellers now. There's so much smoke, so much noise, so many eyes all around. It's a very interesting and intriguing microcosmic place, actually. But it's so Namibian that we decided and that was a choice from Mickey Ross and Sengen to have the lead character working at the Kapana cellar. But it's such a Namibian place that everybody would relate to that place in Namibia, because wherever you go for Kapana, and it's a treat, and it's a place where people like to meet and mingle. And luckily, it has survived COVID, so it still is existing.
I'm glad to actually hear that. That was like my one thought is like, oh my God, this is like, I love it. That's some place like, I would actually go to, and then I'm like, oh, I hope it actually survived all this, because it's like, there's an intermingling, people are just grabbing things all over the place. Well, I want to thank all of you for taking the time today to be part of this question and answer. It worked out well. I enjoyed the film greatly. It's an important film. I'm glad you were able to make it, and more importantly, show it in your country. And also for my audience to get to learn more about a different country and their experiences and their culture. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. And again, I want to thank you again for taking the time to be here today, and it is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We are very proud to be part of your festival and to be all the way to your part of this. So yeah, thank you for having us, and thank you for showing Kapana. It's important for us, and if people after viewing it want to interact with us, we've got a Facebook page, we've got an Instagram page. And we actually would love to receive feedback, because we are trying to use this film to also challenge the status quo in Namibia. So the more support, the more feedback we can receive from people, the better. So if anybody has watched Kapana and has comments and want to share with us, please look for us on social media. We will be really, really happy to interact with you, even though we're quite far away, but we would really love to interact with the audience.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. And then for the people watching, we are going to show the trailer for the film, and that will conclude our virtual Q&A. And again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Victor.
Really, I made you feel that I there's only one thing that can save us right now.
Kapana!
Even in my dreams, you everything. My demons strip me bone to bed. Beyond repair, I thought